Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Geoff Ketchum, joined by Anwar Richardson. And today, well, it's an easy one. We're talking about Rueben Owens' commitment to Louisville on Monday, five-star running back after visiting TCU and pending visits to Texas and Texas A&M. He goes ahead and makes a commitment to Louisville. Do us a solid. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new. If you're just checking us out for one of the first times, subscribe to the channel. We have content Monday through Friday, live shows on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If you are interested in Texas football, Texas athletics, Texas recruiting discussion, we're the home for you. All right, so Anwar. It's almost impossible not to just bust out laughing over this. When you heard yesterday that Rueben Owens had committed to Louisville, because you've interviewed Rueben Owens on this channel.
Yeah.
So your relationship, at least with Owens, is slightly different than most of the recruits that we talk to because you've legitimately had FaceTime with him. Your thought upon hearing that Rueben Owens, the number one running back in the state of Texas and a key target for this Texas Longhorn football program in year 2 under Steve Sarkisian, when you heard the news beyond the chatter that we had on our Slack channel where we all kind of had the same taken aback reaction, what were you thinking?
It's so Reuben. Like that, and that's all I was thinking. This is so Reuben. You got to expect the unexpected with this guy. You got to expect the unpredictable with that guy. I felt like, I think I said something. I was like, if UTSA offered Reuben, he would probably go on a visit because I think he likes being recruited just that much. And I think Reuben loves the spotlight. Let me stop. No, I don't need to say I think. He loves the spotlight. Like this is a definite there. And
he's not gonna. If he were on this, he wouldn't interrupt you and go, "Whoa! Love's a little strong. I don't know about love."
No, he would say, "No." He would say, "Tell me more about me. I want you to keep telling me how amazing that I am." And so, there's a couple of initial. My initial thought was, how long does this last? Like, how long is this commitment going to last here, Reuben? I mean, it's, you telling me in June and I have to lay odds, like, okay, can he keep this commitment up until the start of football season? So we're talking about, September. I don't know. I would have put money on it. And I think there's some variables that could make this commitment stick. But my initial thought was, that's fun. Like, I don't know how many more programs that he's going to entertain between now and signing day. But if you're telling me and want me to believe that as we record this on June 21st, that Rueben Owens is out of the spotlight game and he's just going to chill in the background.
He's just going to focus on his senior season.
Nah, that's not. But Reuben is like prime time. He is prime time. All that's missing is a jerry curl and gold chains because that dude is prime time.
It reminds me of the comment that Deion Sanders made on his actual draft day when ESPN had him on camera. Mm-hmm. And I think they were talking about him potentially going to Detroit in the spot that Barry Sanders was eventually drafted in. And he said on the ESPN cameras that he would cost them so much money that they'd have to put him on layaway. I wonder if Rueben Owens was put on layaway yesterday. I made a comment last week, Anwar, that because there was a lot of TCU discussion about Rueben Owens like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
He left his TCU visit, and he was like, they're telling me I can be the king. They're telling me that I can be that dude, the number one dude in the program, and not have to share the focus with other players like maybe at Texas or Texas A&M or something like that. And my remark a week ago was the recruitment of Rueben Owens reminds me of the Heisman Trophy race in September. It's not a terrible thing to be the leader, like on paper, right? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, you're the leader of the Heisman Trophy race. But typically, if you're the leader in September, you're the loser in November and December when it's time for votes to finally come in. It's a tough spot to hold. I felt that about the TCU comments a week ago. It was my initial reaction to the news that he'd committed to Louisville yesterday. And like you said, we're in a world now where in college football recruiting and NIL, and let's be just blunt about it, the money involved in these recruitments and what young men are being promised and told and all of those things, like, who knows? I mean, maybe Louisville holds on to this thing until the very end. My thought process is, though, that they won't. And it's funny, my first comment on Twitter was, there's no way this commitment sticks all the way through signing day. And John Tate Cook co-signed it. he retweeted me and was like, all of this. And, I think it says something about the recruitment of Rueben Owens so far, Anwar, that our first reaction of, I can't think of another commit or another recruit in the 2023 class that if they announced their commitment anywhere, that our first reaction would be to chuckle and laugh. Reuben has put himself into a place with his eagerness to engage in the recruiting process in general, where he's a standalone entity this year in terms of, I think, the way we perceive his. If John Tate Cook commits anywhere today, as an example, I don't know that I'd be chuckling and laughing about it. I would be viewing it through the prism of Texas this is a big loss for Texas. And it just didn't feel that way with Reuben. It just felt like no matter what the dynamics were behind what led to the commitment, it feels temporary. It just feels like there's just no way this story is over.
Yeah. I mean, Ketch, I think you and I have talked about this before. And Reuben comes from a small town, El Campo. I remember it's when I spoke to him, dude was literally showing me like horses in the background, like how he rides horses around town and stuff. And I mean, and then when this recruitment thing started happening, Reuben started getting out. And then he started getting love. And, it's different when you get the small town love, right? It's the small town love is, you get the extra fries when you go to the restaurant. You don't have to pay for, your food or your meals. Yeah, that's the small town love. But Reuben started going to different places, hopping on planes, and he started getting big time love. And Reuben liked that. Like he was like, this is me. This is what I enjoy. And so that's why if you were showing Reuben attention, Reuben was giving it back to you like that at all times. And I think that's why, this is a guy who committed to Texas and then within 2 weeks decommitted. Catch? Is that
it
about
was very quick.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as quick as like Ryan Newsom. Remember when he like committed to like UCLA and started saying, yeah, well, I'll still be interested in Texas if they're interested. Like, what the hell, Ryan? That's what, because that always stands out in my mind. And so, yeah, when you look at this thing and it looks temporary, and I think you alluded to, Catch, that we're going to keep it a buck on this channel. And that's the thing that you and I have sworn to do. And this is one of the first time you're catching these videos. The one thing you'll know and hopefully learn to appreciate Catch and I ain't blowing smoke up anyone's ass. The asking price of Rueben Owens in June, or whatever price you're able to attain in June, won't be the same price in November or December. Right? Whatever package of NIL that Louisville is able to present for him, because let's not act like all of a sudden that he just grew up a Lamar Jackson fan and that just always had to go to Louisville. Like I always wanted to be a Cardinal. Like let's not be dumb. All right, let's not insult each other's intelligence here. So whatever has been presented to him, let's see if that sticks in the November and December months as we get closer to signing day.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ignore the elephant in the room. We may not necessarily know the specifics of how it's been arranged, but Rueben Owens isn't committing to Louisville unless they've offered him something in the way of something that's incredibly significant, because he knows that if he goes to Texas, for instance, that there's likely, $250,000 a year minimum on the NIL table front based on what we're seeing? I mean, we're at a point where offensive linemen, all you have to do is be on the roster and you get 50 grand if you're a Texas Longhorn football player. We've heard the numbers associated with what transfers from various schools, whether it be Isaiah Mayo or Quinn Ewers or, even, Diamante Tucker Dorsey, who was quite open about the fact that, like, yo, I don't know how long I'll be viable as a guy who can make money playing football. Yeah, it matters. I want to get that bag. So we know that behind the recruitment of all of these things, that is the elephant in the room. What does the future pay structure look like? Louisville obviously had to entice him with – Louisville's not even big-time football. No offense to Rueben Owens or to Louisville, but Rueben Owens has his choice of schools in the SEC, schools in the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, and the Big 12. Like, he can pick anywhere he wants to go to choose a lesser platform. It screams that these other things are occurring. I don't mean to be rude. And Reuben, if you're out there watching this video, I apologize in advance for the suggestion I'm about to make. It just feels like the asking price for Rueben Owens just got higher. That Louisville, there's a marker now. And whatever it is that Louisville has told him is available to him, should he go to Louisville, I think that's now the marker that any of the other schools, including Texas, if they're really interested in Rueben Owens, they're going to have to put him in a situation that's even more viable than whatever it is that Louisville has told him, offered him, whatever. It's the dirty little thing in recruiting, and some people won't want to. Some people will be like, oh, the coach who's recruiting him has done a great job, and he's really interested in the Louisville offense, and he had a great time on his visit and loves the stop. We know what this is really about, and it really is impossible to have a real conversation about the recruitment of a look. Rueben Owens is the number 20 player in the Rivals 100. He's a 5-star running back. He's the number 1 running back in the country. His recruitment is going to center around what's in it for him when he's at the school that he's going to choose. And I will at least say kudos to Louisville. Like, whatever it is, it has to be impressive.
Hell yeah.
Because in a matter of a week, he just changed his mind and just outright committed to Louisville as if those TCU comments never happened. Props to Louisville for stepping up their game and being able to make themselves viable for a kid like Rueben Owens. This now feels like the start of his recruitment, Anwar, not the beginning. Now, if you are going to recruit Rueben Owens, you know what the price of business is going to be.
And Ketch, this is why the old school guys like the Nick Sabans of the world are complaining about NIL, because the playing field is being leveled right now in front of our eyes. Something that we would have said a couple of years ago, impossible for it to occur, because this pitch would have been, come to Alabama, you have an opportunity to, go pro, look at all the guys who are going to be, you can follow in these footsteps, and so on and so forth. And it would have been based off of your future earning potential. And now it's like, wait. I don't have to wait until after my junior year of college. I don't have to wait until after my senior year of college. Catch, all I got to do is wait another couple of months. And now all of a sudden, my family is potentially taken care of. And so when you start hearing about coaches complaining about NIL, why they don't like it, and the guys who are so used to getting these stars, when they see this kind of stuff happening, this is where the playing field gets leveled. And in many ways, Catch, it makes recruiting a lot more interesting. It makes it make a little bit more appealing, because it's not just simplistically like Alabama shows up, well, there it is. I mean, they're going to get the guy that they want. Now it's like Louisville is got the number 1 running back in the country. And now that opens up the eyes, I think, Catch, to every other program that says, man, get our NIL stuff straight. Get that thing on point. And you may not be able to get every single guy who's a top-ranked guy, but you guys can formulate and get enough cash together to get one and being pretty damn impressive. And so to that degree, I agree with you. Kudos to Louisville. Pretty damn impressive.
All right. This is a trick question.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to admit before I ask this question that I personally did not know the answer. And it required, while you were talking just a second, I did a little Google search.
Okay.
Do you know who the head football coach at Louisville is?
No, I know who one used to be.
We all know who used to be there.
Yeah, I know. I give you the list. No, who is
Not
it?
only did I not know the name, I did not realize he'd already been at Louisville for 3 seasons. Scott Satterfield. Who?
Is that supposed to move me in some way?
Oh, I was wondering if I said the name, if it would even sink in. Like, oh, old Scott Satterfield, of course. Scott Satterfield came from App State. So he was a former Appalachian State head coach who goes to Louisville, and his first season was 2019. And his record at Louisville in 3 years is 18-19. He's gone 8-5, 4-7, and 6-7. They played in the Music City Bowl in the first year, and last year they took an L in the First Responder Bowl, which I would joke about, except Texas didn't go to a bowl game. So I don't know that you can clown us doing Texas Longhorn videos. We can't get too sassy over mocking the First Responder Bowl as opposed to the Zero Bowl. But it's not like Scott Satterfield went to Louisville and now he's the up and coming guy. And this is an example
like Billy Gates or something like that, right?
Like this guy's going to be Urban Meyer in the future. This is just his last step before he gets the Florida job, right?
Yeah.
This guy's going into year 4 at Louisville. He's 18-19 in 3 years. And yet the number 1 running back in the country has just committed to Louisville. And, you know, the elephants in the room are all like raising their trunks and making elephant sounds. Like we know what this is about. And in a weird way, it may be the smartest thing that Rueben Owens has done, because it does put a marker down. What is Louisville doing for that kid? It's the question that if you want to continue to recruit Rueben Owens, you've got to be able to answer and beat. So I don't know what that number is. I don't think you do either. Like we've heard discussion that it's something, but if it's $500,000 a year, if whatever it is, he's committed to it now and been like, yo, they're for real. And don't come barking around Rueben Owens' front door if you're not prepared to meet the marker and surpass it. It's probably better to do that in June than it is in November. Like now, every school that wants Rueben Owens has about 5 months. Figure it out. Go talk to your NIL people. Do what you got to do. In the old days, this would have been a suitcase full of money. In 2022, it's so much more vague than that because there is this shield that's called NIL that allows for the conversation of money to be had, knowing that there's a legal way to set it up when it's all said and done. Even if there are rules you're not supposed – like technically, Rueben Owens is still a high school football player in the state of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
He's not supposed to be able to talk NIL yet. It risks his eligibility to do so. The rule is the moment that you're done with your high school career, knock yourself out. It's the thing that sent Quinn Ewers to – now, these rules may eventually change, but it's the thing that sent Quinn Ewers to Ohio State, this idea that you can't do both. So I'm curious to see what happens with Rueben Owens moving forward. It's also hard not to think about what happened with Jaden Blue a year ago in the sense that if you knew, let's just say it's $500,000 for the sake of conversation. If you knew you had $500,000 a year waiting for you at your next stop, would you keep playing football for free? I don't know. Like, and you mentioned the thing about Reuben is he's the biggest thing to ever come out of El Campo. They have never had a football prospect on that level ever. One of my question marks about, it's a small question mark, but it's like Rueben Owens comes from a high school in a talent in an area of the state that rarely produces big time prospects. Should that worry anybody that like El Campo football isn't the peak pinnacle of football in the state? I wonder what it looks like moving forward now that he's actually committed to Louisville, and this conversation of what Louisville is going to do for him will persist every day for the rest of the year. You know, it changes, I think, who he is, because if you're El Campo or you're the NI or you're the UIL in the state of Texas, you almost, well, we don't have any proof. We're just going to ignore the fact that this is happening in front of our very eyes. It's interesting. It's just, there's so many little tentacles to this that cause questions to be asked. And I don't know that they're questions that a lot of people really want answers to. And
because I don't know if you're Reuben, if you know you've got the pot of gold waiting for you in January, do you risk it? You know, playing against your district rival in September, October, like especially as a running back. I mean, which is probably the most ideal situation for you as a running back is the less hits you take, the better off you are. I mean, that's just to improve your shelf life. And there's precedent. We've seen it happen before, so he won't be the first. So therefore, the scoffing and the backlash probably wouldn't be as bad. But I think these are all great points. And then, there's a couple of things, Ketchum. If you're Louisville and you are somewhat invested in this person, and I'll put that in air quotes, do you want him to really take that thing? Because Rueben Owens has proven himself, right? A couple of things have happened. His track times have gotten better from the time he started running track up until this past season. So you've seen the progress there. Rueben Owens has gone to tons of camps and performed extremely well, Catch, right? And all the things that he's performed in against elite prospects, he's always looked good. So, so that was always that question mark, like his track times don't look good, but whenever he goes out and plays against guys, elite competition, he looks great. So I think at that point he's a made man. Yeah, it becomes a real big question mark. And unless you want to keep on Reuben, I've got something that I want to kind of ask you that's kind of within the Reuben conversation. It seems like catch about a week or so ago, we started hearing behind the scenes that Texas is really, really into Cedric Baxter, and Texas really felt like he was probably the better prospect than Rueben Owens. My question to you is did Texas start to feel like the Rueben Owens thing was getting away from them, and that's why we started hearing behind the scenes about Baxter? And then now, what does that mean from a recruiting standpoint going forward? With they already got Trey Wisner and Baxter. That's kind of what I wanted to throw at you. Those two things.
Yes, look. Rueben Owens is a more highly sought after prospect than Cedric Baxter, the kid out of Orlando, Florida. Edgewater, who is currently ranked number 118 in the country with Rivals.com. He is, he's 54 offers. I mean, he's legitimate, and he previously committed to Florida State. He's legitimately a big-time prospect. But Rueben Owens is a superior prospect, and he's from the state of Texas and probably better serves your immediate recruiting class. I mean, there was once this thought, and it may still exist. I mean, I'm not dismissing the possibility that he could end up at Texas. I think what happened yesterday makes it potentially more unlikely that he does. But the moment that you started hearing, Texas kind of likes Cedric Baxter as much as they like Rueben Owens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a soft breakup. It's the beginning of a hedging your bets a little bit. And if you're in a position where we haven't seen Texas hedge its bets at quarterback, so that we've seen them hedge their bets with their number one target at the running back position. Look, we can just use Steve Sarkisian's words against him at this point, which is he doesn't flinch. He doesn't blink. They're going to hang in with their top guys no matter what. Now, it may very well be they also view Cedric Baxter as a top guy, but they have a commitment from Trey Wisner, as you mentioned. They got one spot left. They're not all in on Rueben Owens. And it might just be that the thing is, if you're a school recruiting Rueben Owens, unless you're Louisville, it just might not be smart to be all in on Rueben Owens, because the overall tone of his recruitment is like trying to herd cats. It can be done, I suppose, but man, it's going to be a pain in the ass to do it. And like to pull that kid off of his recruitment now is going to take some extraordinary measures, I think. We'll see. I tend to think that Rueben Owens isn't going to Texas at this point. I think that's the bottom line. If you're a Texas fan watching this video, and the overwhelming majority will be, I mean, it is the Orange Bloods Texas football channel. I think I don't know that I know where Rueben Owens is going to end up, but all of my spidey senses at this point tell me it will not be Texas.
So I'm just kind of curious, Ketch, and can I filibuster for a second? So maybe
yours.
Yeah, no. Could you maybe pull up some of the top guys who are left? You're like on the board. I'm kind of curious from
just at the running back position.
Yeah, just at the running back position. I'm kind of curious.
I got them all in front of me.
Okay, yeah, I like to hear.
Well, you've got Justice Haynes out of Buford, Georgia. You've got Richard Young out of Lehigh Acres, Florida. Is that anywhere you're? Lehigh. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got Jeremiah Love out of St. Louis. Quentin Joyner is out of Maynard, Texas. He's committed to USC. Okay. He's the number 4 running back in the state. And technically, Rueben Owens is like an all-purpose back. So I'm looking at the running back list. You've got Caleb Jackson out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and you've got Cedric Baxter out of Orlando, Florida. Those are the top 6. No offense to anybody else, but once you get, I think, below Cedric Baxter, you're in a different tier of player, different tier of prospect. So those would be the main guys at this point. Almost all of them, except for Jeremiah Love, who technically St. Louis, Missouri is an SEC state. I mean, Missouri is in the SEC. So of the 6 guys in the country, the next 6 best running back prospects in the country, only one of them are committed, but they're all in SEC states. So you've got to go into Florida, you've got to go into Georgia, you've got to go into Louisiana, and you've got to be able to pull the guy that that LSU, if it's, Caleb Jackson out of Baton Rouge. I mean, I don't even know what that kid's recruitment looks like, but I would guess it's LSU and Alabama. You've got to go into Lehigh Acres, Florida, and know that you've got the 3 Florida schools, and you've got to know that the entire SEC. And I look at a guy like Justice Haynes. You look at his recruitment, I'm guessing the door to his commitment goes through Georgia. And sure enough, I click on his profile, and although he visited Alabama last weekend, that's a guy that from a future cast standpoint, everybody's got literally every single future cast for that kid is for Georgia. So, like to answer the question that you didn't ask, but maybe we're about to ask, I think that the market for elite of the elite running back prospects is dwindling. And the reality is that Texas probably doesn't come away with one in this class.
So then does it, for you and I think we're like a little bit different as relates to the Arch thing. But I think maybe we might be in agreement in this as far as like the panic, because you said there's still enough, running backs that are, guys and the quarterbacks that are there. And I was like, ooh, I still would like to get one, or something to that effect. But you pointed to the transfer portal. And has this become a situation where there are probably 1 billion running backs that show up in the transfer portal in December? And at that point, there'll be enough for Texas to pluck So if you miss out on an Owens, you have Trey Wisner. Maybe if you don't bring in anyone else other than Trey, kind of like they did last year. I guess they only had one with Jaden Blue. Do you say to yourself, the portal will be able to you'll be able to make up for that if you miss out on Reuben?
I would. There's a bird in hand thing that goes on right now with college coaches. I don't think, and I'm really impressed when I look at the Michigan States and the Florida States of the world, where their coaches have said they're really all in on the portal. And if they don't get the guy that they want in the high school ranks, they're not afraid to wait, and they feel like they'll get their guy. Look, Michigan State had a borderline Heisman Trophy candidate fall into their hands through the portal a year ago. So at this exact position, so maybe it helps when you know that you've had success there. I think Sarkisian, and we can wrap this up. I think Sarkisian has one foot into the portal, but I think he's got toes. Like, I don't think he's ready to make the all-in leap where when he doesn't get his number one guy, he says, that's it. I'm definitely going to the portal. So far, and I say this looking at his last recruiting class where they were taking guys close to signing day, a Savion Red, for instance, a high 3-star player. I would not have made that offer because I would have saved that and gone and gotten somebody a little less risky and a little more proven with, on paper, the same talent level as that guy. And yet, up until now, they've wanted to put their money on the side of high school prospects. They want to build the program through high school kids. But I think that we're watching the way coaches feel about the portal evolve in real time. I mean, the way that Sarkisian would have felt in December or January before he makes the offer to Savion Red, he might feel quite different just 5 months later because he's now seen Isaiah Nayor and he's now seen the guys that they've made. He's seen the way he's upgraded the wide receiver position. I mean, if they take one more receiver in last year's recruiting class, a high 3-star guy, maybe they don't have an offer available for Ajay Hall. And clearly that's an offer they wanted to have. And they went and got the kid from Iowa State that they think can help out immediately. They've taken 3 receivers through the portal this year. That's legitimate shopping through the portal. They haven't done that across the board. I just don't know that we'll know how Sarkisian feels about it all until we see how this next class unfolds. It's happening in real time, so it's a little bit guesswork. But after watching the way they've handled certain positions in the portal, he has to know that is potential. Oklahoma just added a running back through the portal last week from Central Florida, a kid that had been in the portal since November. So, depending on how you want it to go, there are always going to be guys available. And I think if you're Texas, for me, it's better to shop through the portal than it is to drop down tiers and take someone who's even ranked below a Trey Wisner level, right? Now you're talking low 4 stars, a high 3-star. I don't think if you're Texas, you have to make that offer. It's just that's the offer that Sarkisian has wanted to make in the past. And we'll find out in the coming months. I'm sure, look, they're going to wait on Cedric Baxter, right? So we're not there yet. Yeah. But if they don't get Cedric Baxter and the primary targets are gone, then I think this question is the one that he will have to ask himself and the rest of his staff. And I feel like that's probably a very fluid deal.
Yeah, especially Ketch knowing that Bijan and Roshan, are gone after this season. So I mean, like you're top heavy at this point, but you're definitely the way they attacked, the wide receiver room probably be the way they may need to attack the running back room in the portal going into next season. Because I should have this memorized. Is Keelan? Does he have one more year after this year? Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing: they all have one more year if they want it. Yeah. Like I was just about to say, we're going to talk about this season as Roshan's last season, but let's say Roschon doesn't get the shine this season that he hopes he's going to get. He's got his COVID year that he can always cash in. And you know that from an NIL standpoint, Texas would be able to make it from a 1 year. Now, there's a running back conversation, and you want to start getting as close to your second contract in the NFL as quickly as there's all that, right? But from a 1 year standpoint, you could make a case that if he doesn't have a really good season, it might behoove Roschon to cash in his COVID year, and then he could come back for another year. And technically, Bijan has that. I mean, and Bijan still has multiple years of eligibility left. But if there was a world out there where he wanted to, he could. And I think that's the one thing we have to keep in mind with a lot of the guys on this roster. Deshaun Jameson wasn't planning on coming back this year. DeMarvion Overshown wasn't planning on coming back this year. Keandre Coburn wasn't planning on coming back this year. They all came back because they didn't quite have the seasons that they expected. And this is probably a different video, right? Like, I was just about to bring this up and you kind of brought it up. I think that the Texas running back room, and by itself, is potentially very fluid because all these guys have more options than the traditional, he's a senior this year. You know what I mean? Like, he's about to exhaust all of his eligibility, except for the next couple of years, there will be a group of players that if they want to, they can hit the reset button on that 2020 season. And for a guy like Roschon, it could potentially make sense to do that.
I think you've kind of teased to another video for another day, Ketch, because that becomes the question is, if you're a 5th or 6th round pick versus NIL money, what do you do? So I'll save that. I'll say that. Well, that ends up being the catch teaser. Sometimes you see how the sausage is made, and you see how through conversation it's like light bulb. Next video.
Yeah, no, that one's it's a lay. We're shooting from the layup line with that video, but I think it's the thing I've been thinking about with Roschon for months now, which is if Bijan, let's say Bijan wins the Heisman, or is in the top 6 or 7 for the Heisman.
Yeah.
Doesn't leave a lot of food on the table for a guy like Roschon to put together a season that gets him in the top layer of the draft. What happens from there? We'll do that in a future video. This was the Rueben Owens video that towards the end went a little bit sideways. Do us a solid. Like this video, please. It helps us. I mean, there's this algorithm that YouTube uses that helps up the profile of the channel that's making the videos. If they get likes, if they get subscribers, and by all means, leave your comments in the comment section. If there was ever a video to make comments on, the Rueben Owens commitment to Louisville video is probably in the top 5% of potential comment-worthy threads. We will be reading them. I'm going live later tonight. Anwar's going live next week. Anwar will be going live on Wednesday. We're going to have shows nonstop going into the season. So do us the bare minimum and like the videos and subscribe to the channels. We really do appreciate it. Until next time, for myself and Anwar Richardson, we'll try to not color coordinate with the outfits. This is second straight day. We were both black yesterday. Yeah. We're both white today. Who the hell knows what will happen the rest of the week?
We're a lot of color.
These things are never timed, but boy, they do seem to happen. We'll talk to you guys later. You guys be well.